Our second panelist this afternoon is Dr. Nehemiah Mihindo. He is a seasoned professional who holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in entomology. He has about 3 decades of policy-aligned experience in extension, innovations, farmer capacity enhancement. His strength is in interdisciplinary research and training on integrated pest management and agroecology for transformation of agricultural and livestock value chains. Dr. Nehemiah has worked in different parts of Africa with local and international non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, and farmer organizations with a focus on group approach and participatory methods. He is currently the Chief Executive Officer at Effective IPM Association, where he coordinates activities of 36 organizations which promote integrated pest management and other agroecological practices. Additionally, he is a master trainer in the Knowledge Hub for Organic Agriculture in Eastern Africa, where he offers expertise on farmer-based integrated pest management and validation of knowledge products on organic agriculture. So please, let's welcome Dr. Nehemiah. So welcome, Doctor. Our third panelist this afternoon is Professor Munarusi Saidi. Professor Saidi is the Registrar of Academic Affairs at Egerton University. Prior to that, she was the Deputy Registrar of Academic Affairs. She holds a bachelor's and MSc in horticulture from Egerton, a PhD in horticulture from Egerton and Michigan State University. She is also a member of the technical committee of the Kenya National Qualifications Authority. She's a PI or a collaborator for several donor-funded projects in horticulture and or agribusiness. And she has been a beneficiary of the Horticulture Innovation Labs, where she was involved in the project on bioagronets. I think this was through the Hot Crisp, which I think is a precursor of the Feed the Future Lab. So let us welcome Professor Saidi to this stage. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a very exciting topic this afternoon before us. And this is the topic again on natural resilient horticultural value chains, overcoming climate change and other food system shocks. So we have our panelists, and this afternoon the moderator will be Ricky. Now, because we are running behind schedule, we will shorten this session to 45 minutes. So with those remarks, I would like to welcome Ricky to now take over. So Ricky.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we are all alert and ready for this session with a very interesting panel. And I will skip some of the preliminaries that Professor Bukutso covered very adequately in the last session. So really we want to dig into the meat for this session and uncover some critical nuggets that we can work with as we move forward. Just to start and just to paint a small picture for us, I'm sure quite a number of us have seen this cartoon drawing that has this bird that maybe we would call it a stork or a pelican. I'm not sure what name you would give it, but it's in the process of swallowing a frog. frog is kind of halfway down the mouth of this bird. But what the frog has done is that it has held and gripped tightly on the neck. And it is a struggle where the frog is basically saying, you know what, you're not taking me down, not today. How many have seen that picture, that drawing? Yeah, a couple of us have seen it. Great. So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, resilience is defined as a capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties, or the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape or elasticity. We could summarize it and call it being tough, and it's very apt as we are meeting and discussing this afternoon in terms of how we nurture resilient horticultural value chains, just to reflect that yes, we are aware of the challenges due to climate change, but it is not just climate change that puts a strain on horticulture or any other sector. We have geopolitical issues. We know about the current conflict in Europe. We've just come out of a pandemic, and that has had its own fair shocks and strains on various systems, and horticulture is also included. But also the economic times that we live in. So when the world is interlinked as it is, and probably the Kenyans in the room are thoroughly aware, with the exchange rates at the moment and how that impacts on us in terms of accessing inputs and other such services. The things that are straining, the forces that are straining horticulture and other sectors within or subsectors within the agriculture sector are very evident. And these are what we call or refer to as the food system shocks. So really in terms of the topic of the day and really unpacking what does it take for us to nurture resilience in the horticultural value chains, we will explore some insights from our panelists. They will share some perspectives, but we'll also then want to have your participation by way of questions to them based on their experiences and based on their insights. So, of course, we reflect that this is also within the theory of change that the Horticulture Collaborative Project is using. And this is actually looking at efforts to drive the adoption of innovative, climate-smart technologies and practices, capacity strengthen of farmers, enhance market access, and promote value addition. So those are some of the areas that the project that has brought us here today is looking and working to. So we're going to just hear from each of the panelists very briefly in terms of the issue, first of all, of how horticultural value chains are important in terms of achieving the broader sustainable development goals, and in general, what is the status of play in terms of the shocks to food systems through or arising from climate change and other food system shocks. So, Professor Saidi, probably you would start and just give us a small background against that particular topic. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So, in terms of the contribution of the horticulture value chain to the Sustainable Development Goals, if I got it right, I think the horticulture value chain has a great role to play in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, considering the fact that one major characteristic of horticultural crops is that they are highly intensive. They can easily be grown on small holdings, and considering the fact that if we take Kenya as an example, we're experiencing land subdivision a lot in such a case that in most cases you find that farmers are left with very small holdings. But with horticultural crops, even with a small unit piece of land, you can achieve a lot in terms of time and in terms of space. So the yields that you can get from such small holdings with horticultural crops are much higher than what you would get if you had gone for an agronomic crop, which requires extensive areas of land within a very short time. When it comes to nutrition, that is one of the sustainable development goals. We've already heard it from Moni, that horticultural produce are nutrient dense. For that matter, even if we lack the starches, animal protein, we may suffer some deficiencies, yes, but we can easily survive with the horticultural produce because they range from starch products to proteins and very rich in vitamins and secondary metabolites. Then the issue of gender is one of the aspects there. We find that in most African countries, the land is owned by the man. The women have limited access to land. But whichever small size of land the women have, they can still make good use of it. So that we have women contributing towards building the economy through the horticulture value chain. And apart from production, they can fit anywhere in the notches of the horticulture value chain. You find that from production all the way to marketing. In fact, when you go to most of these markets, you'll find that the vendors of the vegetables are actually women, which empowers them economically. Thank you.
Great. So, Professor Saidi, from what you shared, the intensive small-scale nature of horticulture and as well the ability for players such as women to fit within various nodes is already an indicator of how critical that subsector is, and probably gives us an indication of how sensitive then it would be in terms of the impact of these climate shocks or rather food system shocks. So probably we could hear from Dr. Nehemiah on some of the specific challenges in terms of climate shocks and other food system shocks that face the horticulture subsector.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah, as you have heard, my name is Nehemiah, and I've been told to talk about some of the challenges, climate change challenges that are affecting the horticultural value chain. And before I talk about that, I want to emphasize on the importance of horticultural value chain in as far as sustainable development goals are concerned. I think the horticulture value chain, if is effective and sustainable, it cut across all along the sustainable development goals. Because somebody was here and he said that you cannot do anything without food. You cannot have quality education without food. You cannot have a good environment without food. So the horticultural value chain cuts across the sustainable development goals. However, some of the challenges that are there, as far as the climate change problems and challenges that are there in the horticultural value chain include, we have just experienced a very bad period of very hot weather. Farmers have lost their crops, and so you can see that one of the challenges is that production has really gone down. The other challenge that is associated with that is after farmers have lost their produce, I think one of the other challenges was seeds and other materials, source of seeds and other materials. Like in Kenya, we have the seed law, which prohibits farmers from producing their own seeds. And you agree with me that farmers are really grappled with that problem because they didn't have the resources to buy the seeds. They didn't have the resources to buy the other materials. So that is one other area that really needs to be looked into. The other one is on even the partnerships that we were talking about. We are talking about partnerships, but are these partnerships effective? I work in the NGO world, and I would say that one of the problems that we have is we have got technologies that are, I don't know whether it was Carol who said that those technologies are just in the shelves. Some of them are very good innovations that could be applied to cushion the effects of climate change. But because they cannot reach the farmers, because we researchers develop the technologies, we don't take them to the end users. So I would urge the research organizations, the universities, to work very closely with other small organizations that work closely with the communities so that technologies can reach them so that they can be consumed and consumed effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perhaps Dr. Kirigwa, you just jump in there because, just expounding further on the challenges, but also picking up some of those specifics that Dr. Nehemiah has mentioned. He's mentioned the issue of seed, and we talk of seed diversity, seed integrity, and coming from a research center, I think we appreciate, especially around indigenous seeds. That's part really of the systems that have worked over time, in terms of resilience. So how is that playing out at the moment in terms of farmer or horticultural sector related challenges? And the second part of what he mentioned, the issue that research findings are still on the shelves, kind of not making their way to farmers. I think you could also comment on that.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yes, various challenges are affecting the sector as a result of climate change. And most important is the ability for us to be able to go on in the face of these challenges. My colleague mentioned issues of access to seed. Yes, seed is actually the beginning of any production system. And if we don't have quality seed or seed is not available, then that becomes an issue and it affects productivity at the end of the chain. So I think there are various initiatives to try and help to address that. And the important thing to note is that various stakeholders are involved. And CALRO as an institution also plays a great role to ensure that we have the right seed. Through its breeding programs, there are efforts, and also through other research institutions, to ensure that there is seed that is resilient and able to adapt to the changing climates. So those opportunities offer farmers a head start to be able to select the right seed for the right agroecological zone so that they are able to competitively engage in production. With regard to issue of access to the technologies, yes, there has been a lull in that, but I think in the recent 5 years, there's been very good improvement to try and get those technologies outside. Through the programs that have been executed by CALRO, particularly now the Climate Smart Agriculture Project, I think initiatives have been made to ensure that these technologies are inventorized. They are put somewhere where people can access. Further on, there has been a lot of capacity building, both at the extension level and at the farmer level, to ensure that they know what technologies are out there. So it's much better now, and I think it is even getting better as we try to get digital. And a lot of this information now is accessible on digital platforms. Take, for example, to help farmers in terms of planning We have the Kenya Agricultural Observatory platforms. This is a platform that offers climate information, and therefore farmers are able to predict when they are able to, when they can start planting. They are able to predict how much, or able to know how much rain there will be this coming season, which days it will rain, and therefore incorporate this into their planning and production systems. So the information now is getting out. Carl as an institution and other research institutions are trying as much as possible to get this information in platforms that are accessible to farmers. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Kirigwa. And we are, I think, just moving and starting to really unpack the kind of solutions that are out there. And Dr. Nehemiah, maybe you could just come in on that, because you mentioned, again, just picking up from the fact that you mentioned that these technologies or solutions are not cascading, and that's part of the problem. But what is it that can be done, and probably even from your perspective, what is being done to ensure inclusivity and equity in terms of access to these kind of resources and solutions?
Thank you. Yeah, I think, as he says, technologies, some of the technologies are cascading down to the people, but it is not enough. What could be done is that whenever there are designs, and whenever any project is designed, and whenever any project is being implemented, all parties should be involved in implementation and in design and implementation, such that even the communities who we are working with, they should know what is happening, right from the design to the consumption. That one is really lagging behind. And once you involve them, then there will be some continuity, and there will be some appreciation in terms of use, and also that also comes down to sustainability, because we have seen many projects that have come, very good projects, but after the end of the funding, the projects just go because the farmers or the communities were not involved in the design, and they did not appreciate the technologies that they were taken to them. As my colleague says, the other part that is really helping is, of course, the digital platform. And I think all the researchers, everybody should be able to use the digital platforms so that we can relay these messages to the communities. The other one is on the technologies that we are taking to the communities. As far as climate change is concerned, we should take those technologies that will reduce, one, the cost of production, those technologies that are safe to the farmers. Look at Kenya. We have always relied on link-fed agriculture, but will that be the solution? Let us look for technologies that are long-term and technologies that are also sustainable to the communities. So let us look at specific innovations that are farmer-friendly and they are acceptable by the communities. The other one is the issue of inputs. You'll agree with me that even the government of Kenya has tried to bring fertilizers from everywhere, but has the government succeeded? The government has not succeeded, and therefore we need to go back and look at more sustainable ways of getting inputs through farmer innovations. Like for us, what we are doing, we are trying to show farmers how to do good composting, how to do good liquid manually, how to do botanical pesticides, and what we have been doing is to look at those plants with the pesticidal properties. But then we need the support from the government. We need the government to say, okay, yes, this is good technology. So how do we enhance it? So it is important to look at such technologies that are cost-effective, such technologies that are safe for the farmers, and I think this will also help.
Great, thank you very much. We'd also like to take some questions for the panelists from the audience, in case there are questions. So you could always put a hand up. I appreciate that we are kind of running towards the tail end based on time. But Professor Saidi, I just want to come back to you, because picking up from what Dr. Nehemiah has mentioned, the issue around preserving biodiversity and our ecosystem still does come up. And you're coming from a teaching, training, research institution as well at the university. How do we ensure that balance around preserving biodiversity while also addressing the challenges that have been pointed out previously?
In terms of biodiversity, you'll find that in most countries, most farmers actually practice monocropping, which is actually harmful to our biodiversity. If for the African partners, if you look at our traditional farming systems, they were highly rich. Based on mixed cropping, we have trap cropping, intercropping, rotational cropping, which, because of the restriction in the amount, the available land sizes, that is no longer possible for most farmers. But actually, even with those small land sizes, there are still cropping systems that can be applied. For example, trap cropping. We could have our main crop within the plot, but around the crop or within the rows, we can incorporate other crops there to create biodiversity, to build on the biodiversity. And you'll realize that some of these plants that we are including there will have other beneficial role. Apart from just enhancing on biodiversity, they could also help as food security, where the main crop fails. They could be attractants to some of those harmful pests. So instead of using chemicals, we are using plants to manage the pests, thereby reducing on the need for insecticides and reducing on the harmful effects of the synthetic chemicals. So by practicing such cropping systems, then we'll be able to build on biodiversity. Or even for those who may not be out to grow horticultural crops as the main crop, I can choose to go for grain, maize. But at the tender edges of the maize, I can still put my horticultural crops there, because most of them mature within a very short time. So before the maize crop grows, I'll have a chance to at least harvest a crop, because there's some crops like the amaranth. You can harvest your crop even in 30 days. So that way, you are generating more benefit to the grower and at the same time, broadening on the biodiversity. Then in most of our traditional societies, actually what we used to practice there is the current approach that is being promoted, the issue of circular economy or approach, or it's called, the other name for circular approach is, anyway, it is skipped out of my mind, but I'll remember it. But with the circular approach, we make maximum use of every product that we have in the farmstead. So whatever I use, I'm taking my vegetables to the market, yes, but whatever I'm considering as waste, I can recycle it as nutrients. Or I can use it to feed my animals, then the animals will give me the droppings. I can use those droppings as fertilizer. I can use them as sprays for foliar spray for my crop. So that way, I'm able to have a more sustainable ecosystem, because instead of battling with waste, I have accumulated waste. I don't know what to do with that waste, but I'm going to the shop to buy fertilizer to come and apply on my crop, or I'm going to buy pesticides to come and spray my crop. Then I make it a circular system whereby whatever is waste on one end is an input on the other end, and that way I'm able to achieve a more sustainable ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Do we have have any questions from the audience before we try and tie up some of the highlights from what they've shared? I think there's a gentleman in the corner.
Thank you so much. I'm Dixon Okelo from Cottage University. My question is to any of the panelists. I've had a conversation, we are trying to talk about a resilient food system in the agricultural value chain, and the whole discussion has been to do with adoption of technologies that farmers are able to use. But I'm trying to think that what is the role of entrepreneurial competence in improving technology adoption? Because in as much as we want these modern farmers to uptake these technologies, what is their level of their entrepreneurial mindset, their competence, their skills? Because for them to adopt this technology, they have to be risk takers, they have to be strategic thinkers, but in the context of the smaller farmers, are they competent to be able to take these technologies? Thank you so much.
We have a question.
And I agree with the mutually beneficial ecological services that you have just touched upon, many of you have touched upon, as well as the importance of technology adoption, and then when projects end, the technologies go away and the farmers haven't adopted it. So this question is very similar to my colleagues. So I'm just wondering, when there isn't a financial incentive, which we have heard sort of over and over again is the main driver of farmer adoption, and also this question about whether or not a technology like mutually beneficial ecological services doesn't have an easy pathway to privatization. So for instance, like can someone make money off using manure for inputs, whereas you can make money off selling synthetic fertilizer? I'm just wondering if you could comment on when there isn't a strong immediate financial incentive or privatization pathway for adoption.
Good. Just one more question, because we are really running out of time, and then we'll get responses.
Thank you very much. My name is Bernard Olo from Horticulture University, Department of Dairy and Food Science. My question revolves around a communication that is available on the media today about the new tough crops bill that criminalizes the use of animal manure. I'm speaking with regard to the fact that one of the most important things in resilience has to do with soil amendments. So I would request that the panelists could give a response to this suggestion that it will become almost criminal to allow the use of manures in our fields.
Okay, so thanks. Just but a point of clarification on that particular last one, the legislation is about prohibiting the use of raw animal manure. And we know the risks associated with that. So we'll come to the panelists, and Dr. Nehemiah, probably would start by addressing this issue of entrepreneurial competence. I know you talked about the issue of inclusivity at design stage. Perhaps you would just, kind of tie those two together.
Yes, I think I said about inclusivity along all the value chain. That and if all of us played our part collectively, I think even the farmers will appreciate the technologies that we are taking to them. And I think one of the areas where we are behind, especially in Kenya, is the area of extension, because the extension services or the extension department is the one that is supposed to take these technologies to the communities. If you look at our extension public extension service in Kenya, it's I don't think it is there. I don't know whether it was registration was passed that it was privatized, but it is just not there. So if we all played our part, including the extension service providers, especially from the government, I think farmers will get this knowledge, will get the information, and they will be trained. It used to happen And farmers used to know when the cows are on heat, even when they were very illiterate. So even now, with the new technologies, farmers will adopt and will learn and adopt accordingly.
I think, Dr. Kirugwe, you want to come in, and as you are, I think what Erin was asking in terms of the pathway to privatization, I am very sure that from a Calro perspective, you've also seen probably with some of the materials you have developed through your breeding programs, and some don't seem to quite take off, yet they tick the box for addressing climate shocks. So, yeah.
Yes, I think farmers are rational, and they'll always make the best. Sometimes, let me not say best, but best in quotes, decision in terms of what they want to and how they want to invest. So I believe if they have the knowledge about the technology, and what is important is that they have to have the resources for investment, because some of these technologies require some investment. And this brings in the issue of how then microfinancing comes in, supporting these farmers to be able to adopt some of these technologies. So that becomes the setback, and to the businesses that they have to do. But I think in terms of ensuring that they can become entrepreneurs, I think they have the capacity and the capability, but again, capacity building is essential. And this will be on the production side and also with regard to the enterprise side in terms of how much am I investing and how much I expect to get out of this. So they need a lot of support, and we have seen this in the projects, some of the projects that we have been implementing, that financial support does have a big impact in terms of technology adoption, and they have been able to adopt and improve their enterprises to the next level. Thank you.
So, Dr. Kirigwa, thank you very much. And you've mentioned this in the context of farmers, but I believe we also need to kind of hear from a business perspective, because some of these technologies need to be driven from a business perspective. Yeah.
From the business perspective, of course, I'll take the example of seed. We have been, research has been able to produce some seed. And to engage, of course, there has to be promotion about this technology to even interest the private sector. And the private sector can be able then to invest in the demand that now is created for this particular technology. And I think with the technology holders, some sort of agreements, some sort of working mechanisms can be put in place so that they are licensed to be able to further move this technology to the next level and make it more accessible to the farming communities.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate we are running out of time, so we would want to just kind of hear, by way of closing remarks from each of the panelists, how, what your thoughts are around partnerships that can help us to actually make some of these solutions that you've pointed out become more mainstream, because I believe what we are looking at is how do we mainstream some of these opportunities and solutions that you've pointed out. So, Professor Saidi, as you make closing remarks, please speak to that issue. How do we mainstream some of those specific solutions that have been mentioned out, and how do we improve partnerships in that space?
Actually, in this case, for us to mainstream, number one, the target group is the grower or the farmer. So as already mentioned here, we are running a number of projects, yes, but probably if we take a minute to go outside there to assess the success or how much we have achieved since we started running the project we may actually be shocked. Yes, the farmers are involved in a way, but we need to put in more effort to involve the farmers, because that is the beginning of this entire chain, to involve the farmers from the design stage. At that particular level where we are designing these projects that are intended to bring improvement in this sector, the farmers should be part of it. Because sometimes we see a technology, our assumption is that it will apply so well with the farmers, but probably the farmers have a slight modification to make it even more valuable. In terms of partnership, what I would actually say is that we are running partnerships, yes, doing well, but sometimes I tend to see it's like we treat each other with some little suspicion. So because of that, we have a lot of results generated, probably that can build on each other to lead to a better goal, but because everybody has that reservation that if I disclose this, if I share this with so and so, they may actually go with the idea. So we need to strengthen our partnerships, and we have partnerships that are as open as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nehemiah, please.
I would start by saying that we all know that climate change is biting us, and we really have to do something as experts so that whatever technologies we are taking to the communities, we have to make sure that we look into the issue of climate change. And we learn from history what has happened last year, this year, should be a wake-up call that we need innovations that are really low cost, innovations that are safe for our farmers, and innovation that will bring quick returns to the communities. The other thing is, as he says, is the inclusivity of everyone. Let us include those people, the researchers. We are very proud of ourselves. I'm a researcher also. And let us also include the policymakers, especially in some of the areas that really require some modification in policy. And let us also embrace those policies that are being brought about by bodies that can see far. For instance, we have been talking about the agroecology policy, which has we have been selling, and let us try to read about what it says, so that if there are good things, then we can promote it. So I think for me, agroecology is the way to go. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kirigwa.
I think partnerships is essential if we are to build the resilience of agriculture, and particularly horticulture. And partners will bring in a lot of their own competitive advantages, and they'll also be able to enable us become more resilient as a value chain. So, when we look at value chains, as we think about upgrading, again, partnerships become very important, because the upgrade involves more sophistication, more logistics. It involves a lot of things that require partnerships to get in. And therefore, for me, I think they are essential, and it's a mechanism to bring in all the good advantages of each participating person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our panelists, and thank you to the audience for your participation. I think we have some very good takeaways that we can build up and work on. Some of the ones I want to just highlight from what has been presented this afternoon. Of course, the issue of inclusivity in design. And I would want to just emphasize that it's not just about farmers. I think the businesses as well that provide some of these solutions or try to take them to the ground. Inclusivity during design implementation, I think that's really been emphasized, and the aspect of partnership in there. We have the issue of circularity, how to mainstream circularity. It's been brought up, I think, quite well, and looking at that as an opportunity so that those low-hanging fruits and opportunities for a quick return, as has been mentioned, can be achieved. And of course, as we've heard, in terms of the role of the different partners, just trying to break down the suspicions, and co-creating as a way of doing work, so that the suspicions that sometimes prevent solutions from being co-owned and getting mainstreamed can be overcome. I think those are some critical highlights from the discussion this afternoon, and I trust that they will find a home within the efforts and the activities that the project is undertaking, and the work that we are all doing in our various spaces. So thank you so much for your attention and your time this session, and back to you.